It's Wednesday, January 10th. I'm Scott.
And I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review Initial D. Let's do this. Unless you've been living under a rock in the world of the interwebs, there is one thing which has been dominating the news since yesterday. Well, yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And, we're not talking about it today at all. I'm not even going to mention it. So let's move on.
You mean that fruit company?
It could be something having to do with that, but we're not going to talk about it at all.
They made that phone?
Whatever.
That
you already said too much.
Something?
Let's talk about anime or manga or comics or whatever.
Well, I think we're mostly going to talk about anime today.
I have a feeling that we will talk a great deal about anime today.
I mean, if you couldn't gather from the interesting opener we used, might be a little bit of a special episode.
Special isn't even begun to describe how awesome this episode will be.
And not special like the Ballard boy down the street.
No. Well, I guess depending on your point of view, it could be special like that.
What are you talking about?
But in a good way.
Yeah, that kid's a maven.
Yeah, seriously.
Anyway, I'm just going to jump right into the news here, because there was actually a lot of anime news. A lot of it I'm not going to talk about in any great detail because I don't really care, and I think you know my sentiments exactly as to how I would feel about this news. For example, Nana possibly, theoretically, plans, in quotes, to air in the U.S.
Well, at the end of every Nana episode, they have this girl. Is she like the voice actor or something? Or I don't know what she is.
It's Nana's room.
Yeah, and she sits in Nana's room, and she talks about the show, and she tells you what, like, oh, the soundtrack is available. Go buy it.
She tells you what to buy and when.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, there's a new Nana DVD. Go buy it, and stuff like that. So at the end of one of the recent episodes,
episode 31.
Yeah, she said, Nana's going to be on TV in the U.S. Holy crap. And no U.S. anime company or Cartoon Network or anyone has said anything about that. So we'll wait and see. And because, Japanese people wouldn't know if she was lying.
Maybe they mean by airing in America that they're going to broadcast it at high strength over the ocean.
That would be so awesome. Oh, my God. Anyway.
Yeah, so One Piece. How many movies do you think One Piece has made?
I know they've made too many. Well, see, the thing I don't know is, are the One Piece movies, are they summary movies of the TV series? Because if so, that's actually a good thing, because now you can get the whole TV series in just a few hours instead of watching hundreds upon hundreds of episodes or reading volumes and volumes of manga. If they're not summary movies, if they're actually at important parts in the TV series, you have to insert a movie because that part of the plot is so crazy. And that's bad because now not only is it hundreds of episodes, but it's a fistful of movies too.
I have a feeling, obviously you can tell our ignorance. Neither one of us have seen a single one of these movies.
Yeah, I've watched 4 episodes of One Piece in my life, and I've read about 10 volumes of manga. And that's
way too much.
That's as much as I'm going to read.
But I imagine it's a lot like the Sailor Moon movies, which I've seen all of, or the Cowboy Bebop movie. They take place theoretically at a point along the actual TV continuity, and I guess you could consider them canon, but nothing in them affected the actual plot in any way. Like, you could take them or leave them. So they were basically standalone stories.
Well, it's obviously one of those 3 things. We don't know which because we don't know anything about One Piece.
Of course, that was a spoiler for every Sailor Moon movie, because if you watch them all, Sailor Moon dies, but yet somehow she's not dead by the end.
I guess it wouldn't be a movie without doing that.
I think Dave and Joel were bitching about that in the Sailor Moon R movie, where every movie is like, don't use the super extra power to save the day. You'll die. And she says, but I have to for the sake of the world. And then she just doesn't die for some reason.
All right.
Yeah, Chevalier, which we've seen 2 episodes of, and which my opinion of the first episode was 100% awesome. My opinion of the second episode was 50% fail. So it's still, right around a C, a solid C, is coming to the Anime Network. Regardless of whether or not it's a good show as far as I'm concerned, I think Chevalier is going to do real well in the U.S. among the Anime Network's viewers.
Yeah, it's definitely better than a lot of the other anime that came out this season. So I think in this next round of upcoming shows is going to be one of the top shows, even though overall it might, who knows if it's a great show or not. I think it's an average show.
Even if it's not great, I have a feeling that it's going to be fun. And
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for that show to go into the realm of bad. I think the worst it can be is average, which is, if there's nothing else to watch.
I really imagine myself getting the same enjoyment and the same type of enjoyment out of Chevalier that most people get out of, say, Fist of the North Star or giant robot shows. You know it's bad, you know it's nothing to be proud of, and yet you love every second of it.
I don't know. I put it on the same level as, say, probably Gankutsuo or something like that.
I don't know. I think Gankutsuo is probably a lot better than Chevalier.
I don't know. I actually kind of like the first episode of Chevalier more than I like, the Gankutsuo I've seen. So.
Well, you haven't read The Count of Monte Cristo, one of the greatest works ever written in French.
Yeah, because I don't got time for that shit.
You kidding? You can knock that book off in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, anyway, I knocked off a Lensman book in 3 days, and that provided crazy amounts of enjoyment.
Yeah, I don't really care about any of the rest of this other than Bobo.
Bobo.
Season.
We seem to be the only people who can say that correctly.
I don't know how hard. There's
It's
seven bows.
There's 7 bows. So you do 4 and then 3. Bobo.
We showed that at our anime club back in Rochester when it first aired in Japan. As soon as it was fan sub, you know what? We said the name right even then. How can people still be getting it wrong?
How all these people, like, whenever they see the name on paper, they just go, Bobo, whatever it's called. And I'm like, it's not that hard. Bobo. I can't fail to say it properly. It's not difficult.
We did a tutorial before we showed it in the club where we were like, it's Bobo, pause, Bobo. And we made everyone say it before we showed it to
the guy who attacks with his nose hair.
God, that show was...
It's worth it to watch like 1 or 2 episodes for the... Like, it's the wackiest of wacky comedies.
You gotta
ever.
watch that show up to Don Pachi, and there's nothing left after that.
I think that's about right, because Don Pachi shows up, and it's funny because, oh my God, it's Don Pachi. But then after that, I don't think it goes anywhere. At least not from what I saw.
Yeah, so if you haven't gathered it, I'm just reading off the Anime News Network. But the actual news we want to talk about is in Scott's realm.
Yes, I have the good news here. So, Viz doesn't really do DVDs, do they? They're mostly the manga, right? I'm sure they do some anime, but anyway. They definitely do anime because that's what this news says. Viz has licensed the Death Note anime, right? Which is still on the air in Japan, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, usually the anime companies in Japan seem to have this deathly fear that someone in America will resell the American cheap DVDs back to Japan. So they never let anything get licensed and released over here until long after they've sold their $70 DVDs.
Even though if Japanese people really wanted to, they could just BitTorrent the shows.
Yeah.
It's like...
Or wait. Anyway,
they have licensed the Death Note anime because they're already putting out the Death Note manga, which they're almost done putting out. And but they haven't licensed it in the usual fashion. They have licensed the download to own and download to rent rights, which means pretty much that you're going to be able to download the Death Note anime, I assume with a dub of some sort, in the United States legally with some DRMs.
If only it weren't the DRMs, I'd be all about that.
See, we always say, hey, how come you don't bring this stuff over faster? Blah, 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 blah. And Viz is like, we're bringing it over when you want, and you seem to like digital, so here, we're bringing it to you digitally. But the DRM is the one mistake. People have a hard enough time BitTorrenting and getting their codecs to work. Now you're going to want them to put some DRM shit in there? It's just not going to happen. While they might have an advantage in that this license is going to make the fan subbing stop, at least the, open, easy to get at fan subbing stop. So it might be easier to get the episodes from Viz. It's the DRM is going to stop a lot of people, and their underground fan subbers are still going to end up winning.
See, now, if they were somehow doing it with iTunes, or in some sort of DRM that people are already accustomed to, or some sort of DRM that was widely used, or a service maybe that offered a lot more than just this, they'd probably do a lot better.
Yep, probably.
But if it's just that, I could see myself installing some horrible DRM thing if there was enough good stuff on it and the price was right.
I wouldn't, but okay.
Well, say there was a service where for 10 cents you could get any anime that's ever been released in the U.S. to keep forever for you. It's just DRM'd a little so you can't give it to other people.
Well, it's kind of weird. It's like, if it's on my computer, right? It's like I don't want to install DRM software on my computer because that feels like, my computer can do this thing, and you've taken, you're restricted my computer.
Oh, you mean like iTunes?
Right.
Which you have.
No, iTunes only screws you if you buy stuff from iTunes.
Nah,
it
true.
doesn't screw you if you just use it to handle regular old MP3s.
True, you haven't bought anything.
That's right. But if they sold like, a set-top box or some sort of pay-per-view on your cable box or something like that, that would totally fly because they're not really restricting anything you can't already do. If they had like just push buttons on my cable remote and pay $1 to watch Death Note, that would be pretty hot.
I don't know. Regardless of whether or not we'll use the service or anyone we know will use the service, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, and I hope it succeeds.
At least they've recognized that they got to do something, and they're making a move. They just haven't made the final move.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to somehow getting the licenses early on. Like, maybe, I'd say wait a little bit to make sure that the show's popular in the U.S. by keeping an eye on the fan subs. Mm-hmm. License the shit out of that stuff right away and have it come out right away. And if the Japanese companies won't let you, do whatever they just did to let the jet to get away with this.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll bet the reason they're getting away with this is that the system will probably not allow people in Japan.
Yeah. It probably either won't allow people in Japan or people in Japan will be, DRM'd and have to pay money. So it's not like they're, re-importing anything.
Yeah, but they'll still charge so much less than a DVD. I mean, if it costs the
Plus,
equivalent...
even though it'll still be behind what's on TV in Japan right now. It's not like they're getting a DVD. It doesn't compete with the DVD to purchase in Japan. It competes with the TV to watch in Japan, and it can't beat that because in Japan the TV's got episode 10, and over here we've got episode 1. So it's not stopping anyone from buying DVDs or watching TV in Japan, even if Japanese people can access it.
Oh, one last news before I get away from this whole news thing, because I just noticed this, and I actually read it, and I realized that it's something a lot of you will probably care about, even though it's barely related to anime. Avatar, apparently, is going to have a number of live-action movies.
I don't think that's the... Is it the same Avatar?
Yes.
Because I saw...
No, that very specifically, this is Avatar, the Nicktoons cartoon. This is not related to the other Avatar movie.
Okay, because I saw some news today about an Avatar movie, but...
That's where the confusion is. There's a movie called Avatar coming out from James Cameron. Independently of that, some guy got the rights to make a bunch of live-action Avatar movies based on Avatar The Last Airbender.
All right.
We're going to do a show on Avatar once I've seen more of it, but suffice to say, I think that show is the top dog.
I haven't watched it, and I remain skeptical.
Things of the day!
My thing of the day is an animation, but it is not a Japanese animation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. I'm following your trend from earlier in the week, going with some Warner Brothers animations. And
Warner Brothers, eh?
Yep.
It's either one of two things. My guess is that it's the famous, I know you's done it. I don't know how you's done it, but I know you's done it.
Nope, that's not what it is. It's... Oh, he's hiding in the stove, eh? He's not in the stove. I did it backwards.
Good job.
Anyway.
One of your most famous jokes ever. One of the best bits in animation ever created as far as you're concerned, and you messed it up.
That's right. This is perhaps my favorite Looney Tune there is, and this kind of shit isn't on TV anymore because, well, it shows a guy putting someone else in an oven, turning on the gas, and throwing a match in there.
It's one of the... I remember this as a kid, and I remember it was not long ago. Before we realized it was on the internet and we could just watch it anytime we wanted. We were talking about all these moments and quotes from old cartoons that we remember so dearly.
Wait, when I was a kid, Looney Tunes was on all the time. You could always find it on some channel or another. And this one, no matter how many times it came on, it was always funny just to hear him say, "Oh, he's hiding in the stove, eh?" And also, it has the famous line, "Shut up. And it's just it's such a great cartoon, and it's only 7 minutes long, And it's on YouTube. I don't know how long it'll stay on YouTube. Someone might find it and get rid of it, but whatever.
You'll be able to find it again.
Yeah, it'll come back up. And it's actually a pretty high quality YouTube. It's kind of scary when I look at it because this was made in 1954.
Oh, 55.
No, 54. I was like, wow, it's old. I saw this on TV in like the 80s and 90s when I was a kid 100 times. And it was funny every single time, just like the first time. And it still is. I can still watch it 100 times. It's that great.
So in the interest of not wasting any minutes before we get to the meat of tonight's episode. My thing of the day is real simple. This has been around the internet for a while, but it was recently dug up, and it's something everyone should read, and I had never actually read it. You'd think someone like me would have. It is a very detailed graphical description of how ice rinks actually work, and Zambonis. And before you think,
Rim, and Zambonis.
Before you think, Rim, that's kind of lame, you don't know how an ice rink works. There's no way you know how it works.
Unless you're from Canada.
You're wrong. You don't know. It doesn't work the way you think it does.
How do they freeze all that ice and make it all flat and shiny and skate on it without killing people and such?
And how do they make those lines appear? They don't paint the stuff under the ice.
No, they paint it on the floor under the ice.
No, they don't. You didn't even read it, did you?
They have to.
No.
No?
No. You know what they do?
What?
They layer a thin layer of ice.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thin layer of ice. Then they paint that ice white.
Uh-huh.
Then there's another layer of ice, and then they paint the lines on that layer of ice. And then they cover that with a whole bunch more ice. The actual surface is kind of nappy.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's a word I haven't used since middle school.
Alrighty. Oh, yeah. That's some good stuff right there.
See, Initial D didn't just get me interested in cars. It didn't just give me a very high-quality B anime to enjoy and yell and scream about. It didn't open me up to the world of racing manga. In addition to all of that, it gave me Eurobeat and Super Eurobeat. Music that to this day I can always dance to.
Such energy. See, Initial D, let's see, we first saw it at Anime Club, and they showed 4 episodes.
Yeah, bear in mind, we weren't even running the Anime Club. We were just some freshmen sitting in the front row heckling.
Yep. And, I wasn't really paying much attention to it because we were all heckling and such, so I didn't really get into it. I was just like, oh, a race. Ooh, we don't know if he wins or not. Ooh, whatever. The show was crap.
Didn't help that it was just generally kind of a boring, all right, so car racing with bad PlayStation 1 animation? What's this?
Yeah. Not exactly the most best first impression made by an anime.
Yeah, and the 4th episode, because they only show 4 episodes of something at Club, ended on the cliffhanger of, well, does he win the race or not? And we all thought, I don't care.
Yeah, I really didn't give a shit. I could have lived the rest of my life not knowing whether he won that race or not.
Now, I remember very clearly we were talking about how boring that anime was and how much we disliked it and how stupid it was and all that on the way back to our dorms.
And you know what? Most people who watch this show, they stick with that opinion for the rest of their lives. And you can't really blame them.
Yeah. Even though I think it was me who asked, so do you think he really wins or not? And we talked about it a little bit before we gave up and went to play Battletech or something.
Yeah, that was good times.
But
Battletech is definitely better than Initial D.
Now, there is often the fallacy that just because the first impression of something is bad, the rest of it must be bad, which has screwed a lot of people out of a lot of awesome things, like probably the best hockey game I ever saw, where 2 of the people with us left before the crazy end.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't like something or they do like something prior to experiencing it, and they've already decided before they've seen it, they don't like it. They go, what's this, an anime about cars? Screw that! And then even if you show it to them, they already don't want to like it, so they're never going to like it, and that's fine for them.
Now, for some godforsaken reason, and to this day I don't know why, because it's not like we had free time, other than the infinite free time we were already wasting playing BattleTech and Dungeons and Dragons and board games.
Yep.
We went to an Initial D marathon. I think we planned to show up, gather everyone we knew who was there, skip out early, and play a game or something.
That might have been the plan. I don't remember. But I do remember sitting there and watching all 26 episodes of the first season of Initial D.
I remember. We decided we were all going to go, watch the 5th episode, find out if he won or not, and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was kind of good, so we wanted to see if he's going to win the next
Well,
race.
I think what happened, part of it was sort of a peer pressure thing. Like when we saw it at Anime Club, there were a lot of people there. So most of the people there had the vibe of So we also had the vibe of When we went to see the marathon, there were very few people there. And we were actually able to pay attention to the Eurobeat music and, feel the energy of the show and have it absorb into our bodies. And then it sort of melted us into the seats and we couldn't get away.
See, several of our friends said, all right, he won the race, great. And then they left. And they're like, Rim and Scott. Because no one called us Scrim back then, obviously.
No one calls us Scrim now.
Except our
for you
listeners.
Fools who can't be bothered to type. Anyway.
Yeah, his real name is Scott Prime.
No. Anyway.
So they're like, Rim and Scott, why aren't you leaving this terrible, terrible show? And we looked at them and said, shut up, I want to find out if he wins the gum tape deathmatch.
That's right, fucking gum tape deathmatch for the win.
Man, this show went from 0 to 60 in about 7 episodes.
I mean, no one can say that the animation in the show is good. In fact, it's ass. At least in the first season, the animation is ass. The characters are fugly. And
how could Noboru Furuse, who has done stuff for X-Driver and You're Under Arrest and all these other great anime, at least character design-wise, make these characters?
I don't know.
Well, the answer is because they look like that in the manga and he had no control.
Yes. The manga of Initial D is by Shuichi Shigeno, and it is almost identical to all the anime. There is a slight difference in the first season of the anime in the chronological order of events between the first season of anime and the manga, and they're roughly equivalent. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, if you're going to read the manga, all I'm going to tell you is that what you must do is get some Eurobeat and play it in the background while you read.
I do that all the time.
If you don't do that, you're really going to miss out on pretty much everything that makes Initial D good.
Also, the 3rd or 4th race in the manga is the climax. They saved that race to the end of the first season, and they took some races after it and moved it before. So, you got to pick one or the other. But after the first season of the anime, starting with the second season of the anime, they pretend as if everything that happened was just like the manga, and they forget that the first season changed the order of events.
So we're not going to talk about the manga, and I highly recommend you watch the anime first, or just watch the anime.
Yeah, they're almost identical. It doesn't really matter. Basically, all you really want to watch is the first season of the anime.
And possibly the movie.
The
movie's pretty good.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk mostly about the first season, which begins great, gets great, ends amazingly, and it ends on a note where you don't need any more. It didn't need to pull the One Piece and keep going. Don't watch anything past that.
No, I mean, you could. If you really, really like it, keep watching because it's not as good after that. After that, it's mostly races, and the other half of the show kind of fades away.
Yeah, because here's the basic problem with people. That they saw this show, they thought it was about stupid car racing and made-up drift racing, and they left. But that's only half the show. The other half of the show is funny high school romance, kids yelling at each other, running around, causing trouble.
And there's definitely a story of, figuring out what you want to do when you grow up, when you're, how many kids in this country does that identify with, where they're all like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to go to college and be undecided and blah. That's what Initial D is about, is figuring out what the hell you want to do and going for it.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly.
And starting to care about something.
For such a seemingly vapid and just silly show about drift racers in the mountains of Japan, the show actually has quite a few poignant moments and really, actually, and I'm not kidding, has a pretty good message that is executed very well and is a little bit moving.
Yep. After that, though, after the first season, it's just drift racing.
Yeah. So if you like the racing part and you don't care about the fact that Ikitani likes this girl and Itsuki's a loser, but he's funny, and then he gets into a car accident, if you just want to watch Takumi race while music plays, the rest of Initial D is all for you.
Yep. But if you're a normal person, the first season is where the action is.
But like, there's a scene near the like middling end, like kind of on the rising tide of the show before the climax and everything, where Takumi, the main character, goes out and washes his car, and some music
it's a good
plays.
scene.
That is probably, I'd say, in the top 50 scenes of anime ever.
Oh, could be very well.
Not top 10.
No.
No way. But
well, it's animated so poorly.
yeah, but that's the power of this show. That as dumb as it might seem, the concept, and as silly and jokish and unrealistic as it might be, this scene where he washes his car is actually really moving.
Well, I mean, if you haven't seen, the show and you're not really paying attention to it, then that scene, it just means nothing. But once you know what has come before, you see this guy who didn't care about shit. He was racing because his dad told him, well, I guess he cares about girls, and he was racing so he could get, free gas from his dad who would, basically pay him to race. And then, now here he is washing the car that no one told, his dad didn't tell him to wash it. He just washed it of his own volition.
And then he stands there looking at it, and he kind of has this look of, I found my way.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Of course, now I mentioned a bit, funny high school style humor. It's not like all that other anime high school humor.
No, it's not like, this isn't like a Full Metal Panic thing where there's robots and then wacky anime high school.
It's realistic high school, at least insofar as Saved by the Bell was a realistic representation of high school.
Well, it's not so much Saved by the Bell.
Well,
but
it's Saved by the...
Basically, it doesn't really concentrate on the school that much. It's just characters who are high school age.
All right, let me put it this way. It would be very, very, very realistic if it weren't for the fact that these racing gangs exist.
Yeah.
And the fact that the way they talk to each other.
It's actually more kind of like a Happy Days kind of thing.
Actually, yeah. I never really thought of it that way.
I just thought of that just now.
It kind of is. I mean, most of the scenes will show like a bunch of these guys hanging out at a diner along the mountain.
Yep.
Or hanging out at the gas station where they all work.
Yep. And they're not really hanging out in the school so much.
So what is the plot of Initial D, you might ask?
Okay. Ready? Get this. There's a guy, and he is the...
Takumi Fujiwara.
And his dad, him and his dad live alone, and his dad runs a tofu shop, and he goes to school. The dad sells tofu not only out of his shop, but he delivers tofu to many places. One of those places is Akina Hotel. Well, Akina is where they live, and there is a mountain, Mount Akina. At the top of this mountain is a hotel for tourism to the mountain, and the mountain has like a nice lake that you can go to if you go up the mountain, and it's a nice touristy place.
Yeah, but the road going up to the mountain is kind of old and windy.
It's a very steep, very windy road that you have to go very slow and is very dangerous. And there's lots of drift racing that goes on up there. Anyway, this dad, Fujiwara dad, Bunta, crazy Bunta.
Bunta's the best character in the show, hands down.
I was just going to say that Bunta was the best character in the show.
God damn, is Bunta great.
He doesn't want to deliver the tofu to the top of the mountain at the crack of dawn because, well, it's a pain in the ass. So he makes his son do it. For the time his son was in middle school and not allowed to drive, he made him do it. Because, well, it's on a back road in the middle of the night. He's not going to get caught.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning. The sun isn't even up yet. And from what people have told me, at least in places like that in Japan, there's no one driving at night. You're not going to run into anyone. There's no speed trap.
I mean, imagine if you lived in a tofu shop all alone in, like, the boonies, and you had a kid in 7th grade, and you had a little tiny car, and he could drive it, just not legally, and all you needed him to drive was up the mountain at night, at 4 in the morning. I think he could manage.
So the kid does it constantly. Every morning he has to get up and drive this tofu up before he does
Now,
whatever
the
he's
thing
gonna
is,
do.
tofu sits in water.
Well, no, we can't get to that yet.
Oh, okay.
See, Takumi doesn't like doing this at all.
No, he doesn't like doing it. He wants to go to bed, just like you and me.
So he starts driving as fast as he can. And every day he gets a little bit faster. He can't floor it, obviously. He'd fall off the mountain and die. But he drives the car as fast as he possibly can to get this done with and go back to bed.
On this incredibly dangerous mountain road.
And one day he goes a little too fast around the corners and destroys the tofu. You see, now I can get to what Scott was talking about.
So his dad beat him.
Yeah, his dad beat... not like the stupid live-action Initial D movie, which you should ignore and avoid like the plague.
Yes, the live-action Initial D movie is bad. Very bad.
Yeah, when Bunta beats his kid in the live-action Chinese Initial D, He beats him half to death.
Yeah. No, he just kind of whacks him on the head with the newspaper, like, funny anime style. Anyway, so when he gets home, Dad's like, "Oh, you messed up the tofu," because tofu sits in water, and if you disturb it too much, then you can ruin it. So you can't drive too recklessly. So he puts a cup of water in the car, and he says, as long as the water stays in that cup when you drive, then the tofu won't be messed up, because the tofu's also in water.
So Takami's all pissed now because he has to drive slow again.
But he eventually learns to drive in a way that he can go fast without disturbing the water.
Now, fast forward several years, and this is where the anime begins. Street racing gangs roam the earth. Not really, just there's mountains all over Japan, and no one drives on them at night. So punk kids with rice cars hang out and drift race around and have fun on the mountains.
Yep.
They form little gangs.
And they take it, in the anime, the characters take it more seriously than people do in real life, but that's necessary.
Yeah.
Or else there's no point to
Some
it.
of them don't. The speed stars, until trouble happens, they don't take it that seriously.
No, they don't.
But there's a bunch of little teams. There's the Akina Speed Stars, and there's the Night Kids.
The Myogi Night Kids and the Akagi Red Suns.
Who we'll get to.
Yeah.
Now, the Red Suns are a team that is run by two brothers, Takahashi, and Ryosuke, and Keisuke.
Yep, they're the Takahashi brothers, and their dad is a doctor, a rich doctor. So they have lots of money to buy fancy cars.
Now, these guys are also super Bishonen, and they have super fast cars. One of them drives an RX-7 FC, and one of them drives one of the best cars ever made, the RX-7 FD.
They're awesome cars because they have Wankel engines, not piston engines. And if you don't know what that is, look it up because it's freaking awesome.
Or watch the show and you'll learn a little bit about it.
Yeah, the closest thing you can get to it nowadays is a used RX-7 or an RX-8.
Now, think of this. Here's a scale of how good this car is. A used, beat-up RX-7 goes for more than most brand-new cars today.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a guy at my work who had an RX-7 FD, and he took me for a few spins in it, and good fucking God.
It's quite an awesome car.
You would not believe how fast that guy could take it around corners.
Anyway,
so they're rich, and the Ryosuke, the smart one. You see, Ryosuke is the smart Bishonen one, and Keisuke is the wild and reckless, emotional Bishonen one. But they're both really smart, and they're both coincidentally street racers. So he decides before he goes to doctor school at the, he's going to leave. He's going to go to doctor school. He wants to take his little team and conquer every mountain in, where are they? Gunma
Prefecture.
He wants to beat every street racing team on every mountain in the prefecture before he goes to medical school to prove that he is a badass.
Yep, and he's already sort of famous for being a badass street racer, so... and every mountain, of course, has a street racing team. A mountain without a street racing team is unthinkable.
Yeah.
So all he has to do is to go to every mountain, see who's there, practice on that course a little bit, and then beat them with his awesome fast car.
So, the first mountain they pick, because it's in the middle of stick nowhere, and they know that no one there can drive worth a shit, is Mount Akina. And they have their plan, we're going to start here, and then we're going to conquer the whole blah, 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 blah. And this is where their cunning plan goes horribly awry and where the anime begins.
Yes, when one of them is practicing, learning the course, because they, the Akina Speed Stars are a bunch of schmucks and they can't really race at all.
They're
just wannabes.
Their leader, Ikitani, he gets in
He's a good character and I like him, but he can't drive for shit.
He's also a loser.
He passed out in the third corner. Anyway... they're practicing on this course. So one night, Keisuke is driving down the mountain, and he sees some headlights in his rearview mirror. Now, he's racing down this mountain, so if he sees headlights in his rearview mirror, that can only mean someone is going as fast or faster than he is going.
So he speeds up, whatever, I'll leave this guy in my dust. No one's better than me except my brother. And that's debatable.
And, the only people around are people on his team and the Akina Speed Stars, who are a bunch of schmucks. No one else will be racing down this hill. So he knows it's not his brother because he can tell by the headlights. So he's like, well.
So he keeps going and going, and this car keeps pace with him. And finally, he sees what kind of car it is. He's debating what kind of car it is.
He's like, is it this kind? Is it that kind? All these fast cars.
And then he sees it, and it's a Hachiroku.
Now, Hachiroku in Japanese means 8.6. It's a toy. Basically, this car, what do they call it? The
Trueno?
Yeah, it's a Toyota Trueno 86, which really means that it's a Toyota Corolla.
Effectively.
Yeah, it's a Toyota Corolla from 1985 with a hatchback, but it's got this 86 AE engine or whatever.
No, the AE 86 chassis.
That's right.
As opposed to, yeah.
Yeah. Because there's you can also get it's the sportiest Toyota Corolla available in 1985. It's actually a very famous racing car in Japan.
Yeah, in fact, it's still used today for a lot of nostalgic value, and it's still a pretty good car if you modify it properly.
Yeah, I mean, basically the reason they chose this car is because there's a guy called the Drift King, who's a famous drift racy guy in Japan, a real guy, and he actually comes up in the show once or twice.
Yeah.
And this guy famously drove the 86's car of choice for his drift racing. So
yep. If you search around for drift videos from Japan and look for actual ones on courses, not like punk kids burning rubber in a parking lot, and you'll see what this is all about.
Yeah.
It's half racing and half showing off, and another half, I guess there's 3 halves, rice.
Yeah.
But I think
there's a lot less rice than you see on the streets, though.
Yeah. Well, Japan's very different than America.
It is.
So he thinks, what? This crap old car? And he puts the pedal to the metal. And the guy's keeping pace with him. And he's thinking, what the hell's up with this? And then, in the critical moment, he knows there's a sharp corner coming up. Because it bends around, and then it bends back around. And he slows the hell down because he doesn't want to die. He can't go around that corner fast. His car will just spin out. He'll crash. And this Hachiroku just goes on full bore. And he's thinking, oh no, this guy was an amateur. He totally fucked up. Now he's going to die and I'm going to have to watch it. Oh no. And then... Now the anime slows down into slow motion at this point to show this car drift a little bit to the one side, lose traction in some of the tires, and then rebound around the corner and disappear into the distance. Keisuke spins the hell out because he doesn't know what he just saw. He says the words, Kansai drifting.
And then he says, was that a fucking ghost? Oh my god, what the fuck?
And he just sits there, doesn't know what the hell happened.
Because he totally just got punned.
By a crap old car.
This is as if you were racing down a street in a Corvette and a freaking Yugo passed you. That's what this is like. That's why it's awesome.
Now, if you haven't guessed, Takami's driving this car.
Yes. It's sort of like the show keeps you in suspense. Like, oh, who's driving that car? They don't let you know. But
you're pretty sure.
Know. It's like in Trigun. Is he Vosh the Stampede? They don't let you know. They try to keep it a secret from you for like 4 or 5 episodes. But you freaking know. It's actually pretty fun, though, because... If I didn't just spoil it for you, which isn't the big spoiler.
Oh, God, no.
Now, there are much bigger things to spoil in Initial D.
Like Shingo.
But you could actually, if you've never seen the show before, you could actually be in quite a bit of suspense. Like, is he driving the car? How is he so good? They don't even tell you all the stuff we've told you until, like, episode 3.
Yep, and there's a lot of suspense among the characters as to who's driving this car. Because the Akina Speedstars suck. And they know they're going to lose. And they take this really seriously. And one day, they don't know that Takami can drive. They don't even know that his dad really has a car or anything.
They know Takami. Like, he's their friend who works at the gas station. But they think he doesn't know shit about cars because he doesn't really know shit about cars.
Like, there's a really funny scene where they're watching some videos of the Drift King racing. And they're talking about inertial drift and how to do it. And then Takami's like, Takami's like, what do you guys, this is dumb what you're talking about. And they're like, you don't know anything about this. And Takami says, yeah, you just kind of turn the wheel like this and then like this and tap the brake. And they look at him like he's an idiot. But the gas station owner who knows all about racing because he's friends with Crazy Bunta, we won't reveal much about Bunta, but you'll figure things out.
Yeah.
But he knows about drift racing. They both know about drift racing. And he's thinking to himself, that was the answer of a professional racer.
Dun dun dun.
So we shouldn't really. I think we've explained enough about the show.
I think we have. If you're not already in suspense, you're not gonna be.
So more importantly, what are the important bits about this show? I mean, there's
the music is the number one most important part of this show. Hands down.
I mean, every race has this music, and it pumps you up.
Without this music, the show is basically completely worthless.
We did it once.
You shouldn't even watch it.
I watched a race on mute, and it was just boring PlayStation 1, like watching someone play Gran Turismo.
Yeah, the graphics during the races are PlayStation 1 cars driving down like around some turns.
But with that music playing, especially by the second or third race, you totally forget that. And as far as you're concerned, this is 100% real.
I know, the music, the Eurobeat music, sort of like grabs you and fills you with like this certain kind of energy. And they change the songs throughout the race depending, and they always pick just the right one. And you can totally feel like the pressure and suspense of the race in you, and as it goes down. So you don't really care about what's happening or who's gonna win. It's just sort of like there's a race of cars, and you're on this sort of downhill slope that's going around all these turns inside of you until the race is over.
Now, there's some amazing scenes that you wouldn't expect. I mean, there's the car washing scene, whatever, but even in the races, I can't spoil any of this, but I think Scott remembers the scene where there happened to be 3 cars going down the mountain.
Oh, man.
And something happens to one of these cars, and then there's the car in the back does something, and it's... I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, holy
It's
shit.
really a show of great scenes. It's like all the time they spend in the early parts of an episode, or, well, not early parts of an episode, but the show sort of follows a pattern where, okay, here's the characters. The characters are progressing in this great big storyline, but there's also the, intermittent races, which take about 4 to 5 episodes. And usually it's like, okay, who's he going to race?
God, I just realized that the format of the show is a lot like the cycle of domestic abuse. There's the calm, right? Everything's great. They're just, walking around town. Then tension starts mounting. There's rumblings that someone's going to challenge. There's going to be a race. Then there's the race. It's coming up. They build up the race.
It's like they build up to a race for a couple episodes. Then there is a race. And then the races last like an episode or an episode and a half.
Every race, there's the pre-race where there's everyone's getting ready and there's the tension of what's going to happen. Who's going to race? You wouldn't think that, but half the early races, part of the tension is who's actually going to be racing.
In what cars, where.
And why.
And at what stakes.
And then the first episode of the race covers the first 3/4 of the race. One episode will
end. And then they'll cliffhang you and finish the race in the next episode.
God, this show is a bunch of cliffhangers in a row and then another calm. After the race, it's just...
And the other thing the show does is every time you think you have it figured out, they introduce some other doubt. So, it's like... You'll be watching the races. You'll be like, I know who's going to win this race. It's obvious who's going to win this race. Why would I even watch it? And then they put some doubt in there. And they add doubt every time. And they've added doubt 100 times. For every single race, they add more doubt. And you're like, there's no way. They've done this every single race. They've added doubt, and I was right. What the hell? And then they add doubt again, and you're totally fooled every time.
The show. And there's also... The real street racers don't need women.
That's just a funny running gag.
There's a lot of funny... I mean, I think the charm of this show, what really makes it good, is that it's basically a fighting show with cars. It's got the racing element.
But the fights aren't like Dragon Ball where they last 10 episodes and nothing happens.
Yeah, and they drive the plot very directly, and they're very well done. But that alone does not make a good show. That makes a C anime by default. With nothing else, that's a C anime.
Hell, it's a D anime.
It depends.
Yeah, anyway.
But it also has a lot of characters. And while the characters aren't as fleshed out as, say, Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, they're very fleshed out. They react.
Even though they look ugly as hell.
Yeah, don't worry about their lips. I don't know. There was some sort of chemical deformity in this town.
It must be.
But
that Lake Akina full of poison.
But there's a large cast of characters, and you'll start identifying with them, and you'll see Kenji. You'll be like, Kenji, blah, blah, blah. What are you doing here at the gas station?
And he's
again?
such a side character, Kenji, but you totally know him.
Yeah, and then Sako and Mako and the Sil 80.
Oh, that's those some good people.
Oh, man. Plus, they have good music, too.
Yeah, they have really good music. So, Initial D is the best B anime. No one's going to say this is a great anime of all time. It's not even close.
It's not on the A list.
No one can possibly argue that this is good, but it is fun. It's sort of like playing a board game that you know the board game is bad. It's just rolling dice and moving a guy around the board. But for some reason, you have a lot of fun with this one as opposed to other ones.
Part of what it is, they took what would otherwise be a pedestrian concept, car racing, and they took all the elements of a good show and they put them in there, and they did every part of Initial D as well as you could ever have expected them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, the show is more than the sum of its parts. And I highly recommend this show. If you are a fan of anime, watch the first 5 episodes. Just trust us. If you don't like it after that, you really don't like it, whatever. You're just not a human being and we'll hate you forever. But no, seriously, give this show a chance. And this isn't like, give Fist of the North Star a chance. Really give this show a chance.
Oh, there's one more warning, word of warning. If you get the DVDs of Initial D...
fuck you, Tokyo Pop. Fuck you.
Okay, Tokyo Pop licensed Initial D to be on DVD in the United States. I think that license has been transferred and someone else is going to re-release it correctly. Oh, I think Funimation. I don't know. I forget. But if you get the Tokyo Pop DVDs of Initial D, when you put them in your DVD player, it will give you 2 choices. One choice will say classic, and one choice will say tricked out. Now,
choosing the tricked out option will basically condemn your firstborn children to the fiery abyss of hell for all eternity.
Yes. What Tokyo Pop did is they thought that they were going to get Initial D on American television. Now, Eurobeat music is would have been very expensive to get that on television.
Yeah, Avex Track and Move and all that. That stuff was the hottest shit in Japan back then. And it's still pretty hot shit, all things considered.
Yeah, it would be very difficult for them to get that music onto American television. Also, they didn't think that music would appeal to Americans and such, and they knew that the target audience for a show about drift racing was more urban, I guess they thought.
Of course, the
kind of people who go and watch Too Fast, Too Furious.
But their definition of urban wasn't what most people's definition of urban was. Their definition of urban was 12-year-olds in suburbia.
Right, so what they did is when they dubbed Initial D, which is an average anime dub, actually...
Spike Spiegel plays...
David Lucas, who does Spike Spiegel and Roger Smith, is probably the best voice actor in all of anime in America.
I don't think we should tell them who he plays.
Oh, good point. He plays a minor character who is very important and hilarious.
But also very bad.
Also very bad. But he's the best voice actor in America ever. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh,
Tokyo Pop.
Right, Tokyo Pop. So, what Tokyo Pop did is they hired some people to make terrible music. Worst music you've ever heard.
I know
Initial Drive.
Initial D.
Initial Dream.
Initial D.
Yeah, it's really bad. It makes you want to stab your eyes out. I'm not kidding. I almost did stab my eye out.
Would you want to stab your ears out? Because if you stab your eyes out, not only are you now blind and in pain, but the music's still there, and now you can't find the remote to turn it off.
Well, the reason you do want to stab your eyes out is because not only did they change all the music in Initial D, thus ruining the show, not only did they dub it averagely, but they applied what amounts to 1980s, college punk kids special effects to all the races.
Effectively, it's the modern equivalent of star wipes.
Yeah, they basically, during a race, they would do, split the screen up into, 4 squares showing the same thing.
Oh, also, in the dub, they rearrange a bunch of scenes, cut out a bunch of controversial stuff, and partly changed the plot.
They also changed the names of the characters. Oh, I got to talk about that in a second. So watching it dubbed or tricked out on the Tokyo Pop DVDs is a completely different show that's not worth watching ever. It's like, it might be the worst show ever.
I know Daryl Surratt played some bad American equivalent anime music when they try to redo that stuff, and I'm not going to do that here because I have respect for you guys.
Yes.
You really do not want to hear this music. It is not even bad enough to be funny.
It's inhuman.
I'm sorry, Tokyo Pop, but you need to force whoever did that to commit seppuku right now.
Right. So, if you watch the classic version of Initial D, you will get the original, subtitled, unedited Initial D with the original Eurobeat music, and it is on the Tokyo Pop DVDs, so it is worth watching just to get that.
However, if you like the show, you're probably better off Netflixing it.
I was just going to say that.
And only buy it if you're the kind of person who would show scenes over and over and over again to people. Like, we'll periodically grab key DVDs from Initial D and watch specific races.
We should totally watch one right after the show.
I think we should. I want to watch the one with the 3 cars going.
That's a good one. Let's watch that one.
That's
okay.
my second favorite moment in the show.
That might be. Anyway, the other thing is, in the manga and in the dub, I'm pretty sure in the dub, they have changed the names of some of the characters.
Yeah, because apparently Americans can't say things like Takahashi Ryosuke
right.
or Takumi.
So, for example, the main character is Takumi. They changed his name to Tak. And let's see, Iketani, I think they changed his name.
Ike or something?
No.
I didn't actually read the stupid
They
manga.
changed his name to Cole. And Itsuki, they changed his name to Iggy, like Iggy Pop.
Oh, I'm not going to say much about Itsuki, but suffice to say, he provides a great deal of the humor in this show.
Yes. Oh, and they changed Takahashi Keisuke's name to KT.
Yeah.
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 That's in the anime, in the original manga and in the anime, they actually say the characters' names like Takahashi Keisuke, Takahashi Ryosuke, Iketani, and it sort of adds something to it, the way they say their names. And they always say people's full names like, Takumi Fujiwara, I'll remember that name. And when they change the names, it's like, Tak, I'll remember you. It's like, what the fuck? You weren't that casual before. You were all serious and racing, and that,
Yeah, that's also something that aside from the full name thing, which is cool, that Japanese has various levels of honor and deference that we really don't have in English.
Yeah, but you could still do it properly without making the name silly.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is just to watch the sub.
Yeah, watch the subtitled first season of Initial D. It's worth your time. If you don't get into it, you don't get into it, but it's something you have to, feel inside you in the third place.
Not the first place or the second place, but the third place.
That's right. If you don't feel it in the third place, it's not going to work for you.
So in the very least, watch the first 5 episodes. If you're a little more adventurous, have a little more free time, I'd say really watch the first 13, at least up through the Silady race.
I think that's actually way after the 13.
It might be. I don't remember. I don't know. The gum tape race has got a really good moment in it.
The gum tape race is highest of quality.
I mean, it sounds so stupid. If you explain to someone the concept of a gum tape race or gum tape deathmatch.
Well, see, that's the thing is they also in the original they called it the gum tape deathmatch, right? Oh shit. And then in the manga, it's it's like the duct tape race. I'm like, what?
But really, if you explain the concept to a person just out of the blue, hey, how does this sound for an idea for a race? They would say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But somehow, watching them explain it in this anime makes it sound like the most awesome, crazy, dangerous, amazing thing ever.
Yeah, and it works.
It works all right.
Oh, it sure does.
Man.
All right.
I didn't expect the show to go in some of the directions it did.
So that concludes the only time you will ever hear any anime podcaster praise Initial D, because I'm pretty sure everyone else hates this show. And you might too, but we like it. So fuck you.
Yeah. You know what? We don't make fun of you for your Fist of the North Star or your Great Messenger.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't actually seen those things. I like the idea of them, but I don't know if I'll actually like them when I watch them. Anyway, What are we going to do tomorrow on the show?
Well, you know what? I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow on the show since we've gone long every day this week.
Well, whatever we do tomorrow, don't miss it.
Initial D.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.